you're cooling down for a moment and going for a smooth evening ride. Hope you've got that winning attitude, driver.
Brought to you by Red Bull and Ubisoft's iconic game, The Crew Motorfest. Now, this is the podcast where I get to chat to some of the world's finest motorsport athletes and dig into their passions for all things speed, wings, and wheels. And if you haven't already tried it, you can actually listen to the podcast whilst you're playing the game. Today, I'm going to be chatting with the professional motorcycle rider, Manuel Lettenbichler. He's one of the very best in the world and he's an absolute champion. Born and raised in southern Germany where he's currently based, Manny has been competing for Red Bull Racing Factory since 2016, following in the footsteps of his father, Andreas Lettenbichler, who was a highly successful KTM racing athlete who was top 3 in the world. Manny got his first trial by age 5 and at age 16 he was the youngest rider to ever complete the Red Bull Scramble Hare race, which is a one-day race which is actually the most difficult in the world. He was Super Enduro Junior Champion in 2016 and since then he has brought home the Hard Enduro Championship 4 times. If you don't know what Hard Enduro is, this is a sport where you actually tackle the most extreme terrain. We're talking rocks, we're talking mountains, we're talking off-road in its most extreme version. In 2023, Manny made history by completing the first perfect season in the FIM Hard Enduro World Championship. Now this is a feat that's only been completed by Manny and Max Verstappen in motorsport history today. So is it luck, talent, or is it a bit of both? Let's find out. Manny, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Stoked to be here.
So whereabouts in the world are you right now?
Just in Salzburg now in Austria. Just spending a bit of time now in the FD Performance Center at Red Bull because I torn one ligament at the second last round of the World Championship and trying to keep myself busy with something else than riding at
It's been a while since I've seen you. I think the last time was what, Goodwood in about 2018?
Yes, Goodwood. 2018, I think. It's been actually a while. I wanted always to come back again because it's such a cool motorsport festival and there's so much stuff going on. And it's been a while when we met for sure. But stoked to see you again and talk hopefully about some cool stuff.
Let's jump right in. If you could be a car, a plane, a boat, or a motorbike, which would you be and why?
I think like a plane probably, but like a cool plane, you know, maybe like a fighter plane or like a stunt plane could be pretty sick. I was like doing one flight one time with Red Bull, like in a stunt plane, and it was so cool. Like it was probably one of the best experiences I ever had. Because we just went like doing loopings, like all of these rows, like really jumped straight into it, and I even could fly the plane. So
wow,
yeah, was quite a cool experience, and I think we're so used to the dirt and the ground that I think to be a plane, like being flying around wherever you want, I think is like a pretty cool idea to have in the head.
Is that something that you've always been into? You know, like to go from riding bikes, getting into hard enduro, that's quite an extreme sport. Like, what made you get into it in the first place?
Sure, over my dad. I got into the sport because at the end he used to be one of the best riders in hard enduro. But I more or less grew up with riding bikes, you know, like he always used to be this trials rider and hard enduro guy. And I got my first bike when I was 5, and from then on, I was actually motivated at the beginning because we had like a big farm back home with like a couple of horses. You know, you just want to be outside, hanging out around with your friends, and then one day of like training on the motorbike, I did like a rock, which was like 30 centimeter high, like more or less nothing. But it made me so excited to like push myself in the sport and like trying to get better in it. And after this, I was really like hyped up and like hooked into like riding dirt bikes. And yeah, a couple of years later, we're here, probably one of the best in the world, and talking about motorsports. So like pretty freaking excited.
No, it's super cool. I mean, do you remember that first experience of completing maybe a trail or something like that, and you were like, you know what, this is what I'm born to do?
Not at all. I think
Okay.
I think so many riders and like so many people already as a kid have this like they ride and they're like, okay, one day I'm gonna be a professional dirt bike rider or whatever. But me, literally until I was 16, I thought I maybe gonna do completely something else. Maybe I'm gonna be working on constructions or like a carpenter or like whatever. And then I really more or less found the passion and to say, hey, I want to do this when I finished Red Bull Brigadier back in like 2014, because I was one of the youngest finisher at this point, and for me was really like, okay, I could do something out of it. I could maybe be one of the best guys in the world. And then Red Bull came up to me and said, yeah, we're gonna try to support you for a year. And first he went pretty good, became a Super Enduro Junior World Champion, and from then on I was really like, okay, this could be a pretty cool living on like a pretty cool lifestyle, you know, like you more or less make your hobby to your job, and you can just enjoy riding a dirt bike in the coolest, gnarliest terrain on earth.
I mean, I think that really explains your personality right there, thank you. It's not a case of like, I knew what I was going to do, I was going to go do this. You're like, yeah, I gave it a go, I was pretty good at it, and now we're just still cracking on. And we're doing some championships, we're doing some perfect seasons. And for the listeners out there, that's where video that he's talking about. Let me tell you, as a hobbyist enduro player, that is the hardest enduro in the world. When I watch the videos of it, I'm like, that looks like pain. You must get like halfway through it and you're like, why am I doing this?
I think most of the people, they don't even get halfway through. I think like hard enduro, for all of you guys who are listening to it, it's just like short explain, like it's riding your dirt bike through the gnarliest terrain what you can find. So like you have to imagine like rocks which are like 2 meters high, like uphills which are like more sometimes than like 80 degrees steep, downhills where you like have to more or less push your bike down because it's like too steep. The good thing is gravity always brings you down, so it's like really nice, but like like Red Bull Brigadier is one of the hardest races in the world, and there's like 2,000 starters. At the end, it's like 500 who is going into the finals, and I think like average like 15 people make it. 15 people make it into the finish after 4 hours. Everybody is like who is into motorsport should come to Red Bull Brigadier for one day, just even just to see this festival vibe, because it's pretty cool.
So let's talk about the sport as a whole. Let's break it down. So for somebody that had never come across hard enduro before, tell me what the sport is in your words.
I think really like through the gnarliest terrain, like what we can find. Like it can be rocks, it can be like a dirt, it can be even like dirt to asphalt, it can be like uphills, downhills. You have to think through like through the mountains. I would like really say like a really cool race, or like a really good day of riding hard enduro would be go out and go behind your house, ride into the trees and see where you end up. You know, like I think this is more or less really being out there and like searching for the hardest path what you can do in the morning sport, and it's quite nice in our sport because we have quite a lot of different race formats, so it's never the same at every race, which makes it a bit difficult for the viewers and for the outside to understand sometimes. But for us as riders, it's maybe not too bad because we can have a race which can be 2 hours long, but can have also a race which can be 5 days long, where we wake up every day at like 4 in the morning and we go out there, ride 8 hours on the day, you know? I think that's quite hectic and has a bit of this rally race format what we have out there. For example, like Daniel Sanders and Luciani already maybe talking about this, and yeah, it's quite interesting, but it's a pretty cool sport, and for the viewers out there who have never watched it, definitely check it out on Red Bull TV because it's a pretty cool vibe and a pretty cool like some good characters.
And does the extremity of the terrain denote how long it is? So if something is really, really hard, would that be only a 2-hour race? Or if it was like maybe a little bit less extreme, it would be longer, like you said, like an 8-hour day? Or is it all just really hard?
Maybe all just really hard. I think it's different hard, you know, like you can have a race which can be 8 hours long and is maybe hard, but because the track isn't too hard, but it's just long. Then you can have like a 2 hours race, which can be so difficult to ride, and you really have to push your bike, you have to like really ride, like for every little centimeters that you like move forward, and you also difficult and super hard on the compass. I think that was something that enduro is also about, you know, like it's already in the discipline's name, like it's not only enduro, it's like hard enduro, and that's why I think every kind of riding situation can make it hard, and it's not easy to compete and to ride it.
So let's talk about how it's judged. Is it a case of the first man who makes it over the line wins, or how is it judged?
Most of the time like this way. So we have like starts like at take Red Bull here. It's like 500 people on the start line, and like they're all out, and first guy who's in the finish wins the day, or like wins the race. But then we have this rally format where we are more basically having like the fastest time of the race, so you could start 10th, finishing 5th, but still be the fastest guy on the day, and you can win the day. So there's a bit of different formats out there, but more or less this guy or the first guy in the finish, like in every race, is the fastest rider of the day, and the fastest rider of the day for sure wins the race as well. So it's more or less in every other sport, you know, you can be the fastest guy or like the fastest racer, and you win your competition. It's quite nice to have those formats.
Yeah, it's so different to drifting. I mean, that's a completely judged sport where it's speed, style, line, and angle, and it's just so different. Down to a judge saying whether they like it, whereas this, it's purely a case of if you can make it to the end, then you deserve your trophy.
And like sometimes I'm getting a bit like, I'm watching some drifting, for example, and I'm like, oh, that looks sick. Really sick. The competition, and you're like, I have no idea how they end up with this result, but probably he wins because you like made the sickest style and then go the best speed. But it's quite interesting to see it from the outside, you know. I think for me as like a core racer, to have like this kind of different race form, or like race formats more or less, who there's like other disciplines or like other things where really decide who's gonna I think it's super cool to see. Same thing.
There is an available event nearby.
Same thing, speed, style, and like I'm not sure swag or something like this. Basically, but it's pretty interesting. is gonna make a pretty good job.
It's not like other disciplines in motorsport where you have to have a license or you have to have completed X amount of other races before you can compete at this level. I could literally rock up with my bike and give it a go, right?
Definitely. Like if you're keen and if you're excited enough, you like sign up maybe for regular first period, for example, it can be super easy. You know, like I think that's why our sport is so accessible also for everybody because we for sure race like world championship races, but we also have like these amateur classes at some races. And at Erzberg, like more or less everybody can show up and say, "Hey man, I saw this crazy race. I'm gonna sign up and gonna give it a go." And, it's pretty cool to say this because there's not a lot of motorsport sports out there who can really do this.
So if I got a notion one Saturday afternoon, you could end up seeing me on a hard enduro course. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Just open up a rep tour, maybe thinking about it. Could be a really nice sport to do rep tours with you next year. You never know, maybe we're gonna see Becky Evans ripping around on rep tours with you.
So we're talking about the vehicles. Let's talk about your competition bike. It's a M300C. It's a two-stroke. And you describe it as a light bike. It's aggressive, it's snappy, it's soft. It's way more than a four-stroke, for example. So for you guys out there, you're actually riding a two-stroke. What does that mean for the listeners who have never ridden a bike?
I think for the listeners who've never ridden a bike, so it's like in motorsport, two-wheel side, there's like this four-strokes engine and this two-strokes engine, which is already probably the biggest difference. And like a two-stroke bike is a bit, like I already explained it, like you said, it's a bit more like this lighter feeling, is a bit like aggressive, so it's also a bit more difficult to ride, but then also for us, because we're riding so technical stuff, it gives us like this good feeling about riding because we need sometimes like this aggressive like clutch moment on like gas control to like really make up like a 2-meter step, you know, to really jump up there and like having like this snappy feeling on it, which is super nice. And I think I wouldn't say that it's like a tractor, but it has like this dragging feeling a bit more than like a two-stroke, so it's a bit easier to ride. And for us, this just light feeling, it's super important because you're out there working really hard through just to get to the finish. So it's like your main competitor is already also the track. So I think that's a difference compared to like a MotoGP guy or like a motocross guy. So we really fight already the track, and then we have to fight the competitors as well. And then it's nice to don't have like a heavy bike or like a heavy feeling bike. So that's why most of the guys and myself are on a two-stroke, and I hope we can ride a two-stroke for many more years.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I mean, obviously, when you're riding enduro, there's a lot of sort of getting on and off the bike, and being able to pick it up as well.
Yeah.
And I know from riding four-strokes, they're really quite heavy. So if you're doing a longer course, the two-stroke is definitely a lot easier to pick up and just keep riding on, so you don't use up all of that energy reserves. I was about to ask you, can you describe the look, the sound, the smell, the feel of the bike, and obviously the suspension there, that is such a core component of the feel of the bike.
I think a chainsaw exactly sounds like a two-stroke KTM. It's like you just like start it, it's just like bam, 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 bam. It's like quite noisy bike, but like quite high revs as well, which is pretty cool. But our bikes are quite soft, like I said, so suspension is pretty soft. But then also one of the main components, which is super important, is as well tires, which are super soft, and we ride with like a mousse gummy, which is more or less just like a bit of foam inside the tire, so we don't use air, so we can't get any puncture. So if you're out there on the rocks, which is super gnarly and like super
Sharp.
we never can't get a flat. So that's super important for racing. That's why we use like a nose just to save it on it, and we can really go soft with it. So it's like sometimes people push my tire and you almost can push it onto the rim because it's that soft.
I didn't know that. I didn't realise, because I did think to myself sometimes, I was like, surely you answered my question there. Thank you. How do you think that your pace and your need for what the bike can do for you has evolved over time? Has hard enduro got harder
going through now, all the technical parts, all the tires, all the suspension, there's so many parts which are developed now, let's say the last 15 years. When I remember when I was into racing in 2006, for example, I was 8 at this point, and I just came to the racing with my dad, and they went more or less on a motocross style. So for the listeners out there, like the motocross style is like a super hard tire, and it doesn't really like stick to the ground that much. It's digging a lot, so it's like good for gravel and like dirt. But if you go over rocks and like obstacles, it just doesn't like move at all. So now, if you see from like 2006 or like before 2010 to like right now, it's such a big difference. And I think that's why also the sport got way hard. And every organizer right now wants to have like the hardest race as well. And I think sometimes we as riders have to more or less stop the organizers to don't make it too difficult, because we are right now in this position and at the moment where some things are just getting out of control, and then we almost can't make it up the hill because it's too difficult. I think last year in like bunch of races we had this feeling, and it was just gnarly and nuts. Like I crashed myself one time like in an uphill, and we started, I was like half an hour into the uphill, like just going up the hill, like just zigzagging my way up, like go fast, like really going up the mountain. And I was like, when is the finish coming? Or like when is the end of this hill? And he's like, oh man, you're not even halfway through. And I'm like, how is this possible? But that's hard enduro, I would say.
Like you were saying, the trails are getting harder, like the sport itself is evolving. Like, are you having to refine your bike to keep up with the demands?
Definitely, we have to refine our bikes. Like our bikes right now is one of the most important things as well. If the bike setup is not on point, you can't be there and win a race. Like everything has to work. For sure, I think a lot of people out there who are thinking motorsport is like, okay, you like studying something and like you go on a bike and like it's being more or less a job. But guys, I can tell you for sure still the body is doing most of it. Like it's a really demanding sport. Now, because the sport is so professional that you really have to know that your body is fit, but then also your bike have to be spot on, and that's why the bike setup has to be really on a high level, and there's no time for any mistakes.
Let me tell you, Manny, I have never sweat like I sweat on an enduro bike. You're constantly trying to balance it. You're using all of your weight off the side of the bike. You're picking it up. It's a full body workout. It's a complete man and machine situation there.
Yeah, but you get used to it, you know? It's like with everything, you know? If you're like a runner out there or like even like a drifter, like Hero, for example, you know? Like you get used to like having all of this like shifting gears and like brake, and I think like for myself it will be pretty difficult.
Dude, it's the physical endurance of enduro. Like things. Trust me, I'm way less under pressure in a drift car than I am on an enduro.
Yeah, that's good, probably.
So let's talk about risk and reward. What has been one of the most scariest trails that you've come across or attempted on your bike?
Scariest trails. That's good. I think we have like some races, like these longer races. I've done one race in Lesotho, in like this little kingdom in the middle of South Africa, and we are you're like up in the mountain, and there's nothing. Like, it's such a, at the end it's like a cool feeling as well, but you also, okay, I don't want to get injured there. Like I really don't want to hurt myself there, because at the end you like maybe end up, maybe some local guys find me and they bring me to the helicopter or whatever, you know. But it's sometimes pretty scary if you have like this feeling of not knowing where you are, because you're in the middle of nowhere on the road.
I mean, this brings me nicely to my next question, which was, what does it mean to risk everything? Like, if you could sum it up in a few lines.
Everything. You really have to be aware that there is a lot of things which can go wrong. Like I think probably that's the main the main sentence behind it, because, for example, myself now in the last World Championship round, I came in, I had not a broken wrist, but like I get injured wrist, an injured ankle, and I also risk it maybe a bit too much there, because I really wanted to finish like the World Championship strong. Like I wanted to be there in the front and show why I'm gonna become the world champion of 2024. And I was on this day, I was really over my limit quite a few times, and I also crashed quite a bit on this day, and I almost hurt myself again. And I think you have to know what you're doing, and sometimes it's also pretty good to step back and going forward from them. And in general in motorsport, even if it's in F1 or MotoGP, or doesn't matter in which kind of motorsport category, sometimes it's like, okay, it can go really wrong, and that's why you can risk it until a certain point, but not over it.
Okay, so this is the part where we get to talk about dream vehicles. We can get a little bit geeky, we can have a bit of fun. Let's get creative with this. If you could build your ultimate fantasy dream machine, it could be a car, bike, plane, or a crazy combination. Tell me what that would be and talk me through the color, the look, the sound, the customizations. I want to hear it.
Oh, that's a good question, actually. I think probably like a bike which can go about everything. Like it could be pretty sick, for example, to have like a hovercraft bike, for example, which is just like floating around like water or in dirt, and like going up the hill like pretty easy, riding through snow. But then I think the ultimate bike could be like a flying bike, but which is like a little bit like at Star Wars, I think everybody watched Star Wars out there, and you see like all of his like cool vehicles, what they have, and they just like float over the ground. And it could be pretty sick to have a bike like this. And even if you do like a jump, like you still jump, land again, and you like almost just fly through like over the obstacles. Like even if you have like rocks, you still like have to go on the rocks, and then the bike goes like this a bit. It could be pretty funny. I think this could be a pretty sick bike, like just like a flying Star Wars motorbike. So could be a good one. Maybe a nice little color, a little bit futuristic style. Maybe some nice little rear fender to get the aerodynamic down. I'm not sure. Like there could be quite some good things about it.
I feel like you're just creating a bike to make your life easier next time you do Erzberg. If you could just hover, you just like make it still look like it. Yeah, exactly. Make it still look like it's kind of difficult still, but at the same time you're just hovering on over. You're like, oh yeah, that's grand, perfect.
That's nice.
Perfect. We're gonna jump into a little rapid fire quiz now, Manny. You gotta stay with me. I'm gonna fire some questions at you, and you have to tell me the first thing that comes to your mind when I say this to you, okay? Riding in extreme cold or extreme heat?
Extreme cold.
Riding by day or riding by night?
Riding by day, like really sometimes.
Do you sometimes talk to your bikes?
I think I'm not talking to my bikes. I think I'm talking more to myself sometimes. Like really while riding, I'm like, okay, come on, man, focus. Like be focused. Like be the guy who's like not making any mistake, and really questioning myself also sometimes. And like, why I'm so dumb and so stupid sometimes just to do this. So don't talking too much to my bikes here.
When was the last time?
Oh. Hi, don't talk about my driving on the streets, guys. Maybe like a year ago.
Favorite surfaces: dirt, loose gravel, mud, rocks, or riverbeds?
Some fresh dirt where you can like really grip out of every corner, where it's like just like you see the dirt flying behind you. I think like that's probably like one of the best feelings ever.
What kind of music do you listen to, if any, whilst riding or driving? What would you be putting on the radio?
Not listening to anything while riding. I think we're too much in the zone. But I think for driving, depends really the mood. Like, I think for me, music is for sure super important. But if you drive like through the night, I would put like probably a bit of drum and bass on, maybe some Brucey or like some vibe chemistry or something like this, which really fires you up. You know, like you're almost tired, but you still want to end up at your destination, and you really have to fight through the drive. But I think it really depends the mood, because there's so much good music out there what you can listen to, and I think for myself it always brings me into the right mood as well when I'm listening to the right music.
I don't know why, but I just have this vision of you doing enduro, and there's just like lift music going on up there. You know,
yeah, this could be good.
I feel like that's
cruising around, having a good time.
That's you on over ice.
That could be me. That could be me for sure.
So as you guys know, Motorfest, the podcast, is about the different motorsport disciplines that you can find in the new season 6 of the Crew Motorfest, and be it off-road, flying, motorbiking or GT. If you, Manny, for whatever reason had to make a career change, which discipline would you choose and why?
In motorsport, it could be... Wow, good question. This is a really deep question, Becky.
I know, right? Let's get into it.
I think... Like, it could be pretty sick to go on 4 wheels at the end, because I've always been on 2 wheels. So I think to be on 4 wheels could be pretty sick. Still on dirt. I like dirt. I'm a bit scared on asphalt, so probably maybe like a WRC, like a rally driver, could be pretty sick. I did one time actually when we met in 2018 at Goodwood. I was riding with Evans in his rally car, which was super sick, and I think like this experience really showed me how crazy these guys are out there.
Yeah.
But also how the car is just hooking, like it's just going, and like you almost think you can't make the corner, and for sure you have to be a good driver also, but you'd like get into corner and you're like, oh, we don't make it. And I was like in the chair like this, like holding on to myself, and he just starts drifting, gets around the corner and just flies out there. So yeah, this could be a pretty cool sport.
Well, there you go, Red Bull. You heard it here first. Let's get Manny into a WRC car.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Manny. I feel like I've learned a lot about you. For somebody that is so accomplished, you're so very humble. And I love the fact that, you know, you can attack the hardest of the hard enduro races in the world. And your whole thought process is just, you know what? Let's give it a go. Let's see what happens. And now you're sitting in a position that you're arguably one of the best riders in the world. And it's brilliant to see. It's a lot of talent, and it's also a lot of skill. So it's incredible to get to chat to you on Motorfest, the podcast today.
Thanks, Becky. That was pretty cool. I think for everybody who's out there who's loving motorsport, you should definitely check out our sport, because it's pretty cool. But I just love motorsport, and I hope we can make motorsport even bigger.
I absolutely love chatting to Manny today. It's so interesting when you get to talk to someone that does something so extreme but can be so placid when he's actually off the bike. I love his tenacity to be able to just jump on, challenge himself and complete these races. You don't understand the effort and the actual skill it takes to tackle these terrains. He's somebody that has a long career ahead of him in this sport because he's got the right attitude for it, and he's just an absolute champion. Well, that's it for today's episode of Motorfest, the podcast. I'm Becky Evans, and you can find this podcast on all of your audio platforms, or you can check it out on YouTube. You can just type in my name, Becky with a Y, and you can binge the rest of the episodes. And also you can listen to parts of the podcast whilst you're playing the game. That's the Crew Motorfest. Make sure you check out all of our other episodes, and we'll see you guys very, very soon. The last time you received a speeding ticket?
1 month ago.
Ooh.
There's no good action movie without a bit of a love story, right? That's the side Rick wants to explore in this next.
Boom.